forbidden chapters of history. The hundreds of years of explorations in ancient Egypt haven't been able to solve the mystery of the Great Pyramid on the Giza Plateau. What was this grand structure built for? We still do not have the answer. The Great Pyramid is a great mystery. The facts maintain that it was not really built by the pharaohs, but by the ancient, highly developed civilization of gods, which in many ways surpassed the modern mankind. In such case, while trying to solve the mystery of the Great Pyramid, we may end up being like a Neanderthal who is standing in front of a transformer, unable to understand that this weird thing was not created only for making the buzzing sound. The Great Transformer. It was in the middle of the 20th century when Frenchman Bovy noticed a spectacular effect which the pyramids have on the objects inside them. The dead bodies of small-sized animals do not decay, but mummify instead. The activity of bacteria weakens, and oil, grain and even crystals change their properties. After Bovy, the pyramid effect has been studied by different researchers, but the nature of this effect is still a mystery. The only fact that has been proved is that the pyramids do have an effect on both living organisms and non-living objects. Such influence is beyond the perception of modern physics, and the explanation is a long way ahead. Of course, we are far from thinking that we can find an immediate solution to this challenge. But we could add another portion of strange facts of the pyramid effect, which we personally experienced, into the common bank of facts. As soon as you enter the pyramid, you feel this high humidity. Your clothes get soaked with sweat right away, and you sweat so much that it makes you wonder about where it comes from. So shall we move on and have a steam bath? Right, a sauna. It may have been explained by a high number of people inside a confined space. The breath. But the same effect can be experienced not only on the Giza Plateau, which is frequented by tourists, but also inside the pyramids, where we were the only visitors. For instance, in Meidum, where we had a feeling that the pyramid was literally sucking the moisture out of our bodies. And it was not just a subjective impression. The studies, which were carried out in the end of 20th century, determined that despite the dry, hot Egyptian climate, the limestone inside the pyramids maintains the humidity level of about 80%, as if the pyramids constantly suck the moisture from the ground, and not only out of occasional visitors. In the far chamber of the Meidum pyramid, it even snows. Once you've realized that you have a good 100 meters of stonework above you and it's 30 plus outside, you know it can't be snow. The pyramid squeezes the moisture out of us and the water out of the moisture, leaving crystals of salt, which generates the snowfall and fringes the walls. There's enough to use with our lunch. Want some? Well, Vladislav was complaining he didn't get enough mineral water. Let him have it. My wife asked me not to experiment. Wow, it's snowing up there. The moisture, which the pyramid sucks out of the ground, also builds up on the walls. Only not as a fringe, but rather as an incrustation which fills up the crevices. Well, here's the stonework with absolutely no cementing. And here you can clearly see it. It's not cementing, it's salt. No, it doesn't look like salt. Lick it. Come on. Salt is clearly seen, and this here is not it. Come over. I'm not going to lick it. You want to experiment, go ahead. The walls inside the Red Pyramid at Dashur are covered with some tar residues rather than salt. it may have been left by bats, which favor empty dark space. But the bat version needs to be verified, as the residues have some spectacular features. These black smears do not start right at the joint, but run in some strange clear line. The line is 6 centimeters wide, and every block has it. It runs along all the way, the same on the next block. And the impression is that these black smears come right out of the walls, directly from the limestone. A smear came out and spread. A smear came out and spread. The pyramids are crying. Another odd feature of the Red Pyramid is a strong smell of ammonia. No one knows where it comes from, but combined with the high humidity, it makes our staying inside the pyramid not so comfortable. One of our cameramen almost fainted. You want to shoot from down there and Dima will shoot from top, do you? No, I'm out of here. I'm about to get corroded. I feel like Iron Lumberman now. He almost fell down the stairway, which was 10 meters high. So no matter how fascinating it may have been inside the pyramids, getting outside was a relief.
Very good.
Slava, it's so nice to be outside. Another distinctive feature of the pyramids is the powerful acoustics inside their corridors and chambers. The powerful acoustics inside a confined space is not something unusual. Still, one gets an impression that the ancient craftsmen deliberately tried to enhance this effect and get one and the same resonating frequency inside the whole structure. Almost each pyramid has a place inside where you make a sound and it echoes back, and the echo lasts at least several seconds. This effect is best observed in the Great Pyramid, which strongly resonates at the frequency of 438 Hz. Quite often, one can see people in the King Chamber who place their hands on the walls, close their eyes, and start making a buzzing sound in the trance. A group of meditating people spreads this sound over all corridors and chambers, and you think you can hear a quiet melody flowing down from above. Can't say these experiments have been somewhat unique. It was noted long time ago that the chambers inside the pyramids resonate to frequencies which are naturally produced by the voice of a human being. So when we found ourselves in the King Chamber, in the so-called antechamber, Sergei Siparov, Doctor of Science, Physics and Mathematics, we started making a specific sound. Quite soon, almost right away, we reached a frequency which was quite low, but reachable for any human being. At least for the male voice, it doesn't present any problem. When this sound perfectly resonated against the space around us. I'm not sure whether that was a feature of this specific pyramid or this chamber. One could try the same inside any space which has the walls rigid enough to prevent sound scatter. Still, it's a fact too, and the psychological impact of this sound is evident. With this buzzing noise around you and the resonating noise you are making with your chest, with all those sounds coming from the walls all together, it has a powerful psychological effect on you. But I don't think it's that there's something special about it. Such experiments make you feel like this Neanderthal, only not in front of a transformer, but inside it, or inside any other unit, the purpose of which is unknown. The general assumption is that these blocks were meant to restrict access, to stop. But in real life, they had never been lowered. Another block was used in this space. The so-called antechamber, basically the whole structure, resembles some kind of engineering device. However, the version describing the Great Pyramid as an engineering device is not something new. Part of this version is that the pyramid functions as a transformer. Being a huge lens, it accumulates the energy of the Earth, transforms it into something else, and transmits it further on. Many things in this assumption are still not clear. One thing that we can be sure of, though, is that its design and every element were to serve a specific purpose. The ancient legends say that a stone called Ben Ben fell down from the skies on the top of the Great Pyramid and rested there. No one knows what kind of stone was it and where it disappeared. The technology-related version believes it was some kind of a radiating element or a transmitter which sent the accumulated energy in the given direction, and the historians believe it was really a regular stone, a pyramidion. Yet there has been no pyramidion found from any of the large pyramids built by the ancient civilization of gods. The historians consider the object by the eastern side of the Red Pyramid as great piece of luck and confirmation of their version. Supposedly, it's a pyramidion which used to rest on top of the Red Pyramid. In fact, when you take a close look at it, you see that it was put together using single fragments to make tourists happy. If you go around, you'll see that none of the really old fragments has the two corner ribs, and the edges of the fragments do not fit. It means that they might have rested at any level of the pyramid, and not necessarily at the top. The very top piece was made of limestone quite recently, which is proved by the color and the surface texture. This is obviously a fake. Most likely, the real pyramidion or Ben Ben from both the Red and the Great Pyramids has been lost for us forever. Another element which has been lost, the contents of the Grand Gallery of the Great Pyramid. The gallery itself, with its strong stepped dome, resembles a huge resonator which is sensitive to any vibration and amplifies it. The quality of the structure shows that each part of it was built for specific purpose. There are paired holes on the both sides. My hand goes down there. There are about 20 centimeters deep. No one really knows what the holes were meant for, despite the many versions. The holes seem to have been used to hold some structural components. But what components? The modern archaeologists discovered just the empty area. But the lower section of the corridors was almost full of stone fragments. They could have found their way here only from the upper section. Someone penetrated the pyramid in ancient times and tried to get into the king chamber, breaking the structures which blocked the way and dropping the fragments down. These days, the archaeologists took these fragments out and dumped them in the garbage somewhere on the plateau. Will anyone find a tip here to answer the question of what was inside the Grand Gallery? So far, nobody has tried to find such tip. The plateau hides another unsolved mystery. Not far from the Great Pyramid, there are two passages which are cut right through the rock and which precisely duplicate a part of its inner structure. The point where the ascending and the descending corridors join each other. The historians believe that the ancient Egyptians built them as the model, which they later used for the construction of the pyramid itself. And this section is a descending passage, of exactly the same size. They are simply cut through the rock. Cutting through a rock instead of just building a model with blocks seems ridiculous. Explanation is hard to find. Most likely, they needed this junction of the corridors to try out some kind of a mechanism, to see how it worked. And they did their testing here. One more mystery of this structure is the vertical shaft. It's the vertical shaft which, as they say, the Great Pyramid does not have, or is not supposed to have. There is one here. At the Great Pyramid, it's covered by a granite plug, so there might be something above it. According to one of the versions, they tested the granite plug, which with the help of the quartz crystals was used as the piezoelectric element to transform mechanical stress into electromagnetic waves. Egypt is located in the area of geological faults with occasional earthquakes. Each earthquake is a strong source of seismic waves, or the mechanical stress, which the pyramid transforms into some other energy. Yet even during the quiet periods, the earth crust experiences mechanical stress. The stress makes the rock formations rattle, which can be captured by a human ear, but which produces constant seismic noise. The noise intensity measurements performed at the different points of the pyramids reveal a peculiar effect. The common sense suggests that we should expect an amplitude decay and lower intensity of probably all noises. Sergei Siparov, Doctor of Science, Physics and Mathematics. High frequencies for sure, on the pyramid itself and in its immediate proximity. However, the results of the measurements were quite opposite. Several frequencies have been identified, 2 or 3, I don't remember exactly, which increased the intensity by 10 times. The nature of this effect is difficult to determine. Still, it serves as another proof that the pyramids might have been built as some geophysical structures to interact with the environment for the purpose of energy or any other purpose. The pyramid could have really functioned or still functions as a technological unit, which accumulates the free energy of our planet using some unknown technology. The most important element of this technology is what we call sarcophagi, the stone capsules placed in some key points of the structure. Only 2 sarcophagi have remained inside the large pyramids until now, on the Giza plateau. But they are totally empty and no one really knows what they contained before. The 2 similar capsules in Abusir support the fact that the sarcophagi mystery is a tough one to crack. Who and why would cover the already polished granite surface with an impressive layer of alabaster? Only the most fantastic assumptions spring to mind. What kind of finish is it? Some coating. A capacitor. Must have been used as a coating. Isolation. Alabaster. Why alabaster? Alabaster is a plaster. Okay, then it's a plaster coating. What for? Good question. Go figure those Egyptians. The plaster coating is thoroughly laid and makes a kind of inset in the granite case. It really looks like coating of a capacitor, which uses some unknown technology, doesn't it? The same can be seen in the big sarcophagus, if you look through the opening under its cover. And what if this is not a sarcophagus or a capacitor, but an apparatus for teleportation, to travel to a different place of the universe or even different space and time? Could this be an explanation of why so many absolutely empty sarcophagi have been found? No matter how strange it may sound, such versions should also be considered. The same unknown technology might have required the construction of what we now call a temple next to the pyramids. But is it really a temple? For instance, why did they put here these huge stones, which archaeologists believe to be steles? What kind of steles are these, if they don't have a single line of text on them? If one follows Denikin's assumptions, then the steles could be a symbol of alien rockets, which were once parked here, and the temple was a launching complex or a hangar. Assuming that the pyramids function as some power plant, the steles then could be an element of a controlling device, like a tuning fork, which tunes the emission of a known origin coming from the temple to a certain frequency. The emission which penetrates the pyramid, its chambers, and controls the operation of the gigantic structure. The most puzzling are the level floors next to the pyramids of Usakov and Cheops. The floors are made of basalt. They are just perfectly leveled.
Mizhipalov, candidate of Science and Technology.
But it's not what really amazes you. The blocks which are used for these floors have the irregular shape. But despite this, they are adjusted within an accuracy of a micron. It looks more like a mosaic, some mosaic microchip, rather than a dance floor or a place for a religious exercises. That's why this idea that the temples next to the pyramids could actually be the elements of a technological device, with the waves as the energy flow which broke up and transformed on these floors, these walls, the pillars, is not that crazy after all, as it seems to be at the first glance. It is essential that the pyramids were viewed as one complex. Of course, I mean these large pyramids of Egypt, which in fact constitute the mystery. These 7 pyramids known to everyone. 3 of them are at Giza.
Sergei Siparov, Doctor of Science, Physics and Mathematics.
If we assumed that only one of them was a part of some transmuter, or God knows what else, then it would have been enough to have just one. Even if they had used some sophisticated equipment, unseen back then and nowadays, the efforts were still enormous. And since the efforts were repeatedly spent locally at Giza, which has not just one, but 3 pyramids next to each other, well, it leads one to a conclusion that all this was done for a reason. But you recall the following: when we look at the scheme of a temple next to a pyramid from a technical point of view, and if the scheme is compactly drawn,
Mizhipalov, candidate of Science and Technology.
It mostly reminds you of a piece of a microchip, with the inputs, outputs, amplifiers, triple diodes, transistors, and so on. So from this point, the pyramid could be viewed as a unit, which absorbs some sort of energy. A temple next to the pyramid as a converter, the road from the upper temple to the lower temple as a conductor, the lower temple as an additional converter, and the roads from all pyramids lead to the Nile, which is the common bus. As a result, we don't get a microchip, but rather a macro circuit, consisting of single elements, which have one and the same mission. That means it could be some dual computer, which works for a specific purpose with the help of these huge elements. What kind of purpose? I wouldn't even dare to guess. Egypt is not the only place which has ancient pyramids. Is there a connection between the other pyramids and their Egyptian sisters? And if such connection exists, what is it all about? Can anyone find the answers to these questions? It is doubtful that any of the explorers, although it has happened, but very rarely, would reconsider their points of view, which have been formed during the whole life.
Andrei Zhukov, candidate of Science and History.
In order to try to find and understand new things basing on the materials they have explored for decades. We are only in the very beginning of the quest, trying to answer the questions which take us beyond the modern vision of our planet, its past, present and future. And, as many other mysteries, the one of the Great Pyramid will have to be eventually solved by experts from many different disciplines, and not only by historians. Let's look at the past as if it is a mosaic picture. Once this picture fell to pieces, and now there's someone trying to pick them up and put the picture back together. Time has gone by and some pieces are missing.
Andrei Sklerov, director of Third Millennium Foundation.
No matter how hard the artist tries, he is not able to restore this picture. Basically, the same is with history. We try to restore the picture of the past by means of some fragments which lived through until our times in the form of facts, pyramids, temples, and so on. And the picture that we are putting back together will depend on our vision of those missing pieces. Those Egyptologists who stick to this only vision that everything was built by the ancient Egyptians and do not consider any other versions shall have their picture with the ancient Egyptians on it. But if we assume there might have been a more ancient civilization, then we could make a different picture. The question is, who is going to be left with less mosaic pieces? That is, who is going to be left with far less facts which do not fit in the picture? It seems that the version of an ancient, really ancient civilization, well, this version is going to be the one with far less facts which do not fit in the picture.